G'day folks, welcome to Backyard Legends with Bevo. I'm your host Bevan Jones, where we talk to some absolute legends, from celebrity chefs to superstars of sport and entertainment icons. They tell us about the windows that they broke while playing backyard cricket, to building amazing tree houses and slip and slides as well, and how they relax in their backyards today. So pull up your deck chairs, put your feet up and get ready for some ripping stories.
Welcome to Garden Master, the home of quality sheds, celebrating 50 years of Australian-made quality and backyard expertise. We offer a range of products, sheds, aviaries, animal shelters, shade houses and more, all built to last with our 25-year structural guarantee. 5 decades of craftsmanship and passion have created the Garden Master legacy. Join thousands of Australians who trust us for their backyard needs. Visit gardenmaster.net.au today to explore our range and redeem your special anniversary offer. Australian made, Australian quality, Garden Master, the home of quality sheds.
Hey folks, you're about to see a very interesting episode of Backyard Legends with Bevo, and normally we like to look at the happy times, childhood, growing up, climbing trees, this sort of thing, and unfortunately for our guest today, Todd Ley, this wasn't quite the case. Now, it's a very fascinating interview. It's a little bit darker than usual, but I'll tell you what, it is definitely worth a watch. So stick around for this one. Well, what a pleasure it is to have the man who is a professional tennis player and now a professional coach, Todd Ley, part of the Ley and Langman Elite Tennis Academy. Did I pronounce that correctly, mate?
You got it.
Hey, great to have you on the show, Todd, and thanks for giving up your time, mate.
Yeah, pleasure.
So tell us about the tennis journey, where it all began for you growing up.
Oh, I don't really remember too much. I remember stories that have been sort of told, and I think I sort of got a racket from a Kris Kringle, and then I don't really, again, I don't have a lot of connection to a lot of my backstory of my life. Sort of have a lot of snapshots of like photo memories, but I don't know. It's sort of a bit of a blur and a bit of a mystery, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, right. So, but do you remember first picking up a racket and how that came about? Were your parents?
No, I don't. All of a sudden, it was like, I think the first like conscious moment I've ever had, I just sort of had just waving this thing around. To tell you the truth, I don't know. There's video. I guess the best way for me to remember is there's videos of me. So I look at videos and I was just always a very sort of energetic kid running around playing tennis.
Yeah. So did you have like friends that had tennis courts and stuff? Because you said you had a makeshift tennis court. Tell us about that. Yeah,
well, like very quickly the thing went from like being a recreational thing, but I think my father saw something in me that was sort of similar to himself, where I was like, this kid's not exactly sort of normal. And I think we can sort of make something out of that, because my dad was the sort of person that was always, he just couldn't sort of fit into normal society. Like he always sort of owned race horses and greyhounds, had rib shops, and just always doing things that were a little bit off center. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, pretty quickly it went from being a recreational hobby to then being a job, essentially. That's how I remember it. Yeah.
And were you like, we'll talk about this a little bit later on, because you're writing a book called Smashed, which I can't wait to hear more about. And you've got, I guess, a pretty big opinion about, parents being really harsh on their kids and, forcing them. And we've heard some stories about the Hewitts and what have you, and how nasty they were to Leighton back in the day. And if he lost a game, they make him walk home and those sort of things. So did you feel though you had that same experience growing up as well with tennis, and now you almost don't like the sport anymore?
I think there's sort of like a traditional sort of view on tennis parents, like these people are just malicious brutes. And I don't think that's really true either. At the start when I was writing this book, a lot of emotion was sort of coming out, and I was writing quite aggressively, I guess you'd say, because a lot of anger and annoyance stuff was really coming out of me. But as I started to write it more and reflect on what I'd written, and again, just the industry that I'd been in, the people that I'd seen, I could see that these people weren't necessarily malicious, but they sort of got themselves involved in something that almost like they were powerless over. There's this sort of almost like vortex type thing when it comes to, if anyone really sort of invests in anything, all of a sudden they want a return on it. It doesn't matter whether it's shares or what it is. And this just happens to be child sport. So now that they're investing in something, they want to see a return. And they sort of forget the fact that the people that they're essentially gambling with are children.
Yeah.
So they sort of dehumanize children from a pretty young age. And it's a shame to see, but a lot of young players can become victims of this essentially type of child slave labor, really. Like if you see it from the angle that I've seen it from, they don't have much say in the matter, the children and the players. So, but then again, if you look at the best tennis players of all time, they've been made from tennis parents. So no one can really ruin a player's career like a tennis parent, and no one can really make him either like a tennis parent. So they've got this, I don't know, you know?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And what about growing up? Like, you started playing tennis, you know, at a young age, and were you traveling, did you sort of travel overseas and stuff as a young fella to play in the circuit quite a bit? Yeah,
well, like I won some of the biggest junior tournaments in the world, and then I was the youngest ever athlete signed by IMG. So once I got that contract, there's essentially like a sporting sausage factory over in Florida called IMG Bollettieri's, and that was a powerhouse where all the top players were basically coming out of. And I had the rule of the roost there, so I was flown over there from a very young age. Yeah, it was like this, it was sort of like this compound for sporting extremists, really. And I was based there from a very young age, from about 11 to about 17. I lived in Melbourne as well when I was back here in Australia at the AIS. And then when I wasn't in those two places, I was basically just globe-trotting around playing from tournament to tournament. Sometimes by myself, sometimes with other teams, a lot of the times with my dad. That was my life.
And did you have siblings as well, Todd, growing up?
Yeah, I did. Can't remember their names, but yeah, I did. Yeah, I had an older sister, and I have a younger sister who's, I think, 9 years younger than me. Yeah.
So some backyard sporting battles with them growing up, or?
No, not really. It was like I was pretty well like the golden child, and no one else really got much attention. You know, like it was really my tennis commitments ruled my family's world. It was just I was placed on this pedestal, and everything was just really. I was the main coming attraction. I was like this human child spectacle sort of thing. And so everyone else was just caught up in this, again, this thing that just happens from child excellence, the pursuit of child excellence, essentially.
And how'd you deal with that? And do you feel as though your siblings resented you a little bit because you were getting all that attention?
Again, coming from a competitive environment, it's like competition's kind of normal. So yeah, I guess so. It's just a very, very weird situation where I was like, you know, if you ask me if they have any normal memories, the answer is really no. Like I don't, because it's just it's like socialization and culture were seen as the enemy of excellence. Wow. And so you got to be kept away. You're going to be kept away from that stuff, and your job is to entertain, perform, and that's what you're good at, and that's sort of what you do. It was never verbalized
at a young age as well. That's so tough, you know, because like I said before, you know, other kids are climbing trees and playing hide and seek.
Again, I wasn't really like attracted by that either. So it wasn't like it was different if someone's really rejecting it, but I guess the tough part is like, well, I was actually suited to that. Do you know what I mean? So if you're seeing someone like be very good at climbing trees, well, you allow them to climb trees, and this kid's very good at tennis, and he's just going to do it for 6 hours. Yeah. Well, just let him do it for 6 hours. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's like, well, hold on, we might be able to do something with this. And then if someone just gets taken by that, they have a susceptibility to extremism, which my dad sort of was. He was this maniac, sort of charismatic, eccentric, captivatingly weird person. Yeah. And he just felt like he could be this ringmaster of our traveling circus, really. Wow. And he was.
And what about being overseas for long periods of time, Todd, as well? And did you miss sort of being home and the whole, you know, backyard barbecue Aussie thing? And did you sort of recreate that kind of thing overseas as well?
No, I didn't. I don't know. I've always felt very alienated and distant and separated from people. I didn't feel very at home within my own family. Didn't feel like. I always just sort of felt like a self-made loner, even though I didn't necessarily enjoy my own company. So it was weird being away from people, but I didn't necessarily I don't know if I missed them is the right way to put it, but I definitely felt like alone.
Do you reckon that because tennis is such an individual sport, and I've heard people say this in the past, that they do become independent people because they're not playing like a footy or soccer or other sports like that? Do you regret not playing a sport that's like a team sport, like a basketball or something? And do you think that made you a bit more of an introvert? And
I can't regret anything I don't have a choice in. Do you know what I mean? Like, some things are chosen for you. Like to look at something, like I don't tend to look at life really in a way like, oh, I've had all these choices and options. Like, I tend to view it through really quite a deterministic, fatalistic way of like, I didn't have much say in this. I just went along and put up and shut up. Like, you know what I mean? I just sort of took it. And I never even thought that you could go, hey, like, this isn't, because it was just my normality. What's normal to you was normal to you. So no, I don't. Regrets, no.
And what about now? Have you got kids of your own?
Yeah, I have a 3-year-old, a 3.5-year-old.
And are you, like, I know obviously 3 is still pretty young and stuff like, but are you now, I guess, living those childhood memories, creating new memories with your child that you sort of didn't get yourself growing up?
No, I'm going to do the same thing with him as my dad did.
Taking the piss. Yeah.
No, it's completely different. But yeah, I've got to watch myself because again, like I have all those wires and things ready. Like he comes out to our academy, the Langman and Ley Elite Academy.
Yeah.
And you know, he's a natural. He just came out and I wasn't there at the time. I was somewhere else, and he hit a shot, and my girlfriend sent me a video of it, and straight away, within 0.3 of a second, my planning of where I thought that I could take this child just went 10 years down the track.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very like
you're being like your dad.
Oh, I'm the narcissistic, the whole thing, like to really do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I have those susceptibilities as well. So I got to really watch myself when it comes to getting lost in like living through my child. Like he's not a racehorse. You know what I mean?
Good on you.
He's not a racehorse. Like I've got to get my own life sort of separate to him. Like I'm not really raising my child. I'm sort of there to. That's the way that I'm sort of looking at it anyway. Otherwise, I'm just going to interrupt and there's a lot of interfering. Too much interfering.
And you don't want to be like your dad. Like you and I actually make your son do it whatever he wants to enjoy himself, and he wants to be a professional tennis player. Good on him. But you actually want to just let him do whatever he likes and let him enjoy life. I get that same impression.
I mean, that's everyone's birth. That should be everyone's birthright. You know? So again, I love my dad. There's no one I love more than him. He's a very sort of complicated and complex person, and in a way, I don't think a lot of the stuff that went on was necessarily his fault. So like he's not this sort of evil. I don't believe that these people. It's very easy to paint someone through a one-dimensional lens and think that they're very evil and this and that, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
And I think when someone is sort of not able to see themselves and their own actions, and everyone around them is sort of enabling the behavior, people get hurt.
Yeah.
People get hurt.
A huge thanks to Aussie Rules Global for being an amazing sponsor the last few years. And speaking of Aussie Rules Global, if you want to be part of something special next year on Anzac Day over there in Gallipoli, and you're over the age of 18 and you're a male or female, check this out.
The Slugs plan to play men's and women's games here at this soccer ground, the closest to the Gallipoli battlefields during the 2025 commemorations. The idea to make it spectacular, to fill this entire area with Aussie Anzac pilgrims. Vincent Malia tours with the Southern Slugs. Footy, he says, is perfect to honour the Diggers.
They would love it, I'm sure, because it's bringing Australia over there, isn't it?
Have you taken your lad down to like the local playground, all that sort of thing? You let him do kid things?
Yeah, we go down. Yeah, we are. Well, he's parenting me in a way, a lot. And like I'm learning a lot from my son because, I mean, everything that we do, he's just completely liberated. This person, and I feel very sort of shackled and I don't know, imprisoned in a lot of ways. Like I try to really let my son wash over me as much as I can because he saved my life in a lot of ways. Saved my life.
Oh, that's beautiful, mate. And how'd you go like being away from him? Because obviously we'll speak in a moment about how you got to first meet Thanasi and that relationship with him, and obviously Todd as well, and going on to win an Adelaide International Championship and playing the Australian Open, what have you. But yeah, how'd you go being away from him though the last few years?
Well, I went away when he was 3 weeks old, and I was away. It was like during COVID, so that was a very weird time, because we had trouble me potentially getting back. The flights back were, I don't know, like $22,000. It was very lucky that I nearly got stuck in Romania. Weird time, and I was lucky the fact that I didn't really know him, my son, because he was only like 3 weeks old. But now he's got like a personality in that. I couldn't really leave him now, so it was ideal timing to sort of be away for that period of time. Yeah, so lucky I got back.
Yeah, I've got a 2.5-year-old, and they're at that cute age, aren't they, where they just want to muck around and have lots of fun and drive you crazy at the same time.
Yeah. It's great. I'm really glad that I'm a father.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah.
And your own professional career, a lot to be proud about with that.
How so?
Well, you played obviously at the highest level, and
I didn't play at the highest level. I mean, I played professionally, and it was a very brief career. I don't know about the highest level.
Still though, mate, you were playing overseas on the tennis circuit at a young age. That's still something to be pretty proud of.
I mean, again, like when you're there's a lot of expectation on me to go further than I was. So
yeah,
I don't look at that as like, yay me. That's not how I view that. It's been quite it's been a shameful thing.
Okay. And what about the coaching? When did that first come about?
The coaching came about after the career failed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing else to do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we spoke about this off air before, and you thought, okay, my tennis career is over as a professional player. What am I going to do next? And rather than sort of working at Macca's,
it wasn't like an okay, I think. Like I sat down with a guidance counselor and we worked this out.
Yeah.
It was bang. What do I do? Where do I go? Which way's up? Which way's down? Everyone's gone. Where are they all?
Yeah, wow.
I don't have any that. So it's more that. Like to sit down and be like, this was a planned out, methodical type thing. It was it was complete falling off the cliff, falling on your ass. What do I do? Cling to whatever you can to stay alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So coaching's technically saved your life.
Well, it's kept my heart ticking over. Let's put it that way. I don't know if it's kept my sanity. It's affected that more than anything. But really, like again, because of all eggs being in one basket, there's no contingency plan. Contingency plan would just be basically running with a parachute on. It was like, this is what we're doing, this is where you're going, and any other thought apart from that would be seen as the thing you weren't serious about it. So it was like I didn't have anything to fall back on. The only thing that I knew how to do was this.
Was be a coach, yeah.
Well, to tennis. Not even how to coach. I didn't even know how to do that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So what age, like what stage of your playing career did you start thinking, oh, better look towards being a coach now? And
there was no thinking.
Oh, wow.
There was no thinking. It was just bang over the edge.
Yeah.
What do I don't know what to do. What do I do? I don't know. Like it was very catastrophic and cataclysmic end to what I was doing. It would just abruptly ended.
As a player?
As a player, snap.
Wow.
Snap. Fucked it. Like, I'm done. And it would never even occurred to me ever in my life that I would not be doing this. It was just like, I had an incident that happened to me when I was in the, where was I? I don't know. I can remember, but I've forgotten this. I've lost the thought.
Train of thought, yeah.
And there was an incident that happened. I've written about it in my book. I walked away from that. There was a chance of me to get into the courtesy car, to go back to the hotel, and I walked. I ran. Yeah, that was basic. I walked around and it was just bang, you're done. I was like, what? I just knew that it was this thing was completely over. There was something inside of me that went, that's it. So if you asked me 5 minutes earlier if that would, I mean, it just never even, never even crossed my mind.
What age were you at that stage, mate?
17.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've been coaching like as a teenager pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
17, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. With your coaching methods, do you follow a different kind of approach which is obviously different to what you went through now, and not sort of being, I guess, like obviously the parents aren't involved as much because it's you coaching one-on-one, but do you try and sort of adopt more of a method which is something different to what your dad sort of did to you as a child?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I try to keep it as much as possible between me and the player. So I'm not open to outside interference, especially when I'm there. It's got to be between me and the person who I'm working with.
Yeah.
But ultimately, again, that's a drop in the bucket in comparison to how many other hours there are in the week that a child spends with their parents.
Yeah.
So the conditioning, you can't really compete with conditioning.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It sort of sometimes feels like it's a bit of a winless pursuit. Like it's difficult because everyone very quickly becomes an expert, and everyone's great at telling everyone else how to live their lives and what to do.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then once again they get involved in this thing, and then
I know, completely different to your situation, but I used to be involved with Ready, Steady, Go.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Kids program, and the parents would always get involved, and it would drive me crazy.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I know exactly what you mean. And Todd Langman, where did you first get to meet? And tell us about the academy as well.
I met Todd when I think I was 7 and he was 14, and he was one of the only people that took my dad up at the end of this Roseland squad to play sets with this 7-year-old kid. It's weird being a 14-year-old and hitting with this young, juvenile, really.
Yeah.
And anyway, straight away, immediately, we were back at Langman again. We were just strangers, a couple of hours earlier. I think he jumped in the car with me and my dad, directed us back to his house, and we were playing practice sets at his court, his synthetic grass court, till about, I don't know, I think it might have been 11:30. And I think until I think either there was a noise complaint or a next door neighbor complaint or his mum came out or something. And, it was just from there. And nothing's really changed. Nothing's really changed since then. It's
Well, it's pretty amazing, your academy that you've had together. Looking back at that now, it's a man that you've just met, as you mentioned before, you're 7 and he's 14. It's pretty incredible to think what you've done together and had the success you've had with Thanasi as well, Thanasi Kokkinakis.
Well, the success there, but the accolades belong all there to Todd.
Why is that?
Well, Todd did all the work. I did bits and pieces.
What do you mean by that though? Because
Todd basically, I'm not sure exactly the age that he met Thanasi at, but yeah, Todd did, 95% of the work with Thanasi, and he did it, a remarkable job. Done something that basically not many people have ever done in the world.
That's a humble thing for you to say though, when you're involved.
It's not humble, it's very true.
So what was your involvement then?
Well, I worked with him, I did bits and pieces. Like I was I was a big drinker at the time, so I was very unreliable. But I'd, do bits and pieces here and there, but it was very well understood that like I wasn't the right person to be investing a future, and that was at a very young age. And then, as he got older, I did bits and pieces there. But I mean, Todd's quarterbacked a lot of Thanasi's career. He's done it. It's quite an incredible story.
I think you cutting yourself short a little bit there with your involvement, mate. So just keeping with the Backyard Legends Bevo theme, Todd.
Yeah, right.
Have you had Todd Langman over for a barbie to say thanks?
Yeah, all the time. He comes over, he steals all the chicken, eats all the chicken, and then leaves. And doesn't leave anything for anyone else. Yeah, very typical.
Your book Smash, it's due to come out soon. I can't wait to have a read of that.
Yeah.
Just give us a quick plug and tell us more about it.
Pretty well everything that I've said here. Like, again, I'm not much of a promotion person. I don't know. I just wrote this thing, and I didn't really have much plans of it being a book or whatever. And now that I've written it, like, I don't really know what to do with it. And like people say, well, you got to promote. I'm not a promotional person, but here I am promoting my book. So yeah, pretty well everything that I've spoken about if you want to get a peek behind the so-called gentleman's game.
Yeah.
I'm still yet to know those gentlemen, but if you want to have a look.
Todd Langman?
Yeah, real gentleman that guy is. But like if you want to have a real look and not the sort of media coverage type sensationalized glossy thing that, everyone tries to portray the sport as. Yeah. If you want to know what you're really sort of getting and looking at, I'd maybe have a look at that. Now it's not for everyone. Like don't shoot the messenger. I'm not.
No, I can't wait to
You know what I
read.
mean? Like, but yeah, like again, because I think it's the sport's very misrepresented by the media and stuff like that. And up to you. Have a look if you want.
You mentioned before about the situation between the Australian Open and Adelaide International being so different and not getting a chance to really be involved. Explain a bit more about that.
It's not that I wasn't involved. It was like, so we've gone from, I think that was around COVID time as well. And there was a couple of tournaments here in Adelaide, if I remember correctly. I think Thanasi made the semi of the first one. And then I think he was sort of touch and go whether he was going to play the second one. And I think we sort of somehow tried to convince him to play. And it being that it was in Adelaide and it was our hometown, yeah, I felt like everyone there involved in the process sort of played a part in, you know, getting that his first maiden ATP title sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was an emotional thing, and it was a real good story really for both, especially for Todd and Thanasi. And
you as well.
Yeah. But I'm like the third wheel in a way, you know what I mean? Like I'm sort of the third wheel of the romance thing, and then very quickly, because it was a quick turnaround before he played Australian Open.
It's like the next day. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So and then he had, I think he got a wild card and he played the next day or whatever. Yeah, I think that was the first round, sort of tough loss.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we were just assuming that, you know, he would sort of be out of the doubles within the first couple of rounds, because that's usually what happens. It's especially after the tournament, the big week that he had in Adelaide, we sort of just felt like it probably would be leaving soon. And then they won it, which was sort of surprising and shocking and weird and
the special
controversial case. And yeah, and it was those guys have so much game that they needed very little outside help, you know, because it's not like they needed expert coaching to be able to go out there and win it. These guys really won it off their own bat.
Hence why you told me before about being a cheerleader.
I just sort of felt like a bit like there's a huge entourage of people, you know, because when Nick's around and Thanasi's around, there's a lot of hangers on. There's a lot of people there, and because we weren't really doing much, it sort of felt like, even though they were coaches, it sort of felt like to me sort of a hanger on as well. And it was weird. You know, it was a very, very strange experience. It was a very, very strange experience.
I think that's a very interesting way to finish off things, Todd. Todd Ley, thanks so much for coming on Backyard Legends of Bevo, mate. It was a really interesting chat, and all the very best with Smash. Can't wait to have a read.
Thanks.